This will be mostly for 2v2, but also 3v3. I'm talking mostly from a 2v2 perspective. But I'll mention some 3v3 stuff too, of course. I'll start with talents. Twist of Fate, Castigation is what you pick most of the time. Schism is not good. At higher ratings, when people know how to punish you for playing Schism, it won't be viable. Twist of Fate, I will spec when it has a high chance of proccing. For example, if I play against a Frost DK Holy Paladin, and Paladin usually goes melee wings, they put me in a Hodge, they're always going to get me down to 35% every Hodge or less, right? So then you get twist when you come out. Or if you're against a Hunter team, they trap you, Wyvern you, stun you. You're in a lot of CC, and then your partner is low on health, and then Twist of Fate procs on your partner. Because when you get out of the CC, he's already low on health, and then you get twist, so there's a lot of value. So that is something I will go when I know I'll be low health very often, when you know you get a lot of uptime. But Castigation is extremely strong. It's a lot more powerful than you think. It doesn't sound that powerful, but one additional bolt on every penance is actually a big deal. It's a lot of damage and a lot of healing. So this trait right here, I want to mention that real quick. When you dot, you have a chance to get your next penance increased by 50% damage or healing. Right? That's huge. That also is 50% damage and healing on that extra bolt. So Castigation is very, very strong. If you're not going to have a lot of twist uptime, if you're not going to be low health a lot, definitely go Castigation. You can do a ton of damage and play really aggressive. It also synergizes really well with Searing Light. So every time you smite, it reduces the cooldown of penance. So when you're going really aggressive, you're spamming smites, you can penance way more, and then your penance is way more powerful because of Castigation as well. So basically, you always want to go Castigation if you can, but if there's a matchup where you are low on health a lot and your teammate is low on health a lot, Twist of Fate is good. You can also play around Twist of Fate, playing the way that a lot of time you can just play aggressive and do damage and not heal so much, and wait till you drop low, and then make your twist proc on purpose, and then start healing. Pairing it up with Archangel, for example, can be really good to do. So I just spam damage, smite, dot, penance, you know, heals only a little bit, your health goes down overall. Your Twist of Fate procs, boom, pair it up with Archangel. You have 20% hair, 30% hair, you do insane healing. Angelic Feather, Body and Soul, Masochism. In 2v2, you very often go Masochism. It depends a little bit on the comp you're playing and all that kind of stuff. For example, if I'm playing Asa Rogue Disc, Feral Disc is probably, I would say Feral Disc is probably the strongest one. Asa Disc might be the second strongest. Comps like that, Masochism is very often good because you'll be standing still a lot and just turreting and PvE people down. Like, you'll do a lot of damage. It doesn't matter that you get your CC that much, because Asa Rogue has bleeds on everything usually, and so does the Feral. So if you fair, it usually just breaks right away anyway, right? So you don't need more mobility, you just need to stand still. And then having this makes you way more tanky. Masochism, you always want to go if people are on you a lot, which will happen a lot in 2s. In 3s, not so much. You don't get targeted a lot in 3s, so you go either Body, Soul, and Angelic Feather. A little bit of a preference, I'd say. Body and Soul, it's good for your teammates. You can think about it like that, because when you shield your teammates, that also gives them a sprint. So you're giving your team a little bit more of a mobility. Feather is way more control. So if I played a comp like, say, Sub-Rogue Disc in 2s, or I played RMP in 3s, I would go Feather very often. Because then you're setting, your fares are important, right? You're doing setups, and you need to get to your target. So you feather, and you sprint over, and you fair them, right? And it's a lot easier to get your fares when you have a sprint. And you have 3 sprints, and you place them down exactly when you want to. So in a situation like that, I'd go feather. Or it's also good for avoiding getting CC'd, of course, if someone's trying to CC you. Like, if a mage is trying to poly me, and I'm pillar hugging, it's obviously easier to avoid it if I can just sprint around the pillar. So in 3v3, I only go Masochism if it's like against the melee cleave that's going to train me down or something. Okay, next here, it's, you never go Dominant Mind, it's not a thing. You go Shining Force or Psychic Voice, most of the time Psychic Voice. In 2v2, you actually go Shining Force quite a lot, because you play comps where fair doesn't do anything. If you're in a situation where you're playing a matchup or a comp where you won't be able to fair a lot, or your fair doesn't do a lot, just go Shining Force. You still have fair, but it's on a long cooldown, 1 minute cooldown instead of 30 seconds. Shining Force is a really strong button. It's not used enough. People, I don't know why, but people just don't spec into it. It's really strong, especially in 2s. What you gotta remember about this, Shining Force works on other targets too. So whoever you target and you press Shining Force, it'll knock whatever is around your target. So I just targeted him and used it, and then you saw this yellow stuff around him that knocks everyone around him. It can be very powerful against a lot of stuff. If, for example, as a rogue, they only have one shadow step. So you see this rogue, he shadow steps over to me, and I just knock him away, and I run. And then he loses a lot of uptime, right? Or he has to use a sprint or something. Or you're playing on Blade's Edge, and you just knock them off the bridge all the time. It's really annoying to deal with. Very powerful button, very underused, should be used more. Okay, next here, Powered Solus, Shield Discipline, Mindbender. It's between the Powered Solus and Mindbender. Basically, think about it like this. You always want to be Solus in 2v2 because it's more mana. If you use this properly on cooldown, it'll always be better because it's more mana overall. And a lot of 2 games are really long, so you need the mana. But in some matchups, it's not good because you won't have the global. It costs a global every 10 seconds, and you won't have time to constantly press it because of the pressure the enemy team has. And in that case, you go Mindbender. For example, if I'm up against a Hunter team again, I won't have time to Solus because I'll be CC'd a lot, and every time I go out of CC, I want to top my team, right? So I don't have time to keep my Solus up all the time. I'll just go Mindbender. Mindbender also heals because of Atonement. All the damage it does, it heals. I'll go through Atonement later. I'll go into details with that. But Mindbender, you can think of a heal as well. It gives you mana, but not as much as Solus. But it's definitely good to just chuck out there for some healing and mana. So you're always going to go Solus if you want, but sometimes you need Mindbender and you don't have time to Solus all the time. Test that out yourself a little bit. See what you can get away with. Try to always go Solus. And if you're like, oh, I lost that game, didn't have time to Solus a lot. Mindbender next game. See how that works out. Next up, here you only pick between, you don't go this thing. It's bad in PvP. Sanctuary, Clarity of Will. You actually use in 2v2, especially Sanctuary a lot. In 3v3, I would probably go Clarity more because you don't get to smite as much. But you go Sanctuary paired with Searing Light. I'll talk about that later as well. Sanctuary Smite's Absorb effect is increased by 50%. You don't need Clarity of Will. If you get kicked on Shadowmend, you can still shield, you can still penance, and then you can just smite instead of using Clarity of Will. I would go Clarity of Will maybe against something. I'll use the same example like Frost DK, Holy Paladin. I'll maybe go Clarity of Will because they do so much pressure on me that I feel like I need that extra bit of healing, and getting kicked on Shadow and then now having Clarity to top myself up could lose me the game. Most games though, I'd say almost every game in 2-2, I'll go Sanctuary with Searing Light nowadays. Next, you always go Purge the Wicked. Not going to talk about the other stuff too much. Next, Grace. You always go Grace. I've seen some people play with Power Infusion. I'd suggest not doing that. Just play Grace. Next, Honor Talents, Trinket, Adaption, Relentless. I always play with Trinket pretty much. Adaption, they should remove from the game. I don't like it. Maybe it's good in some situations. Test it out where you like. Relentless can be good against, for example, I like to go Rally against sub-rogues just so they can't sap me off kidneys and can't sap me off fairs as easily, because it just tilts me too much when that stuff happens. It's kind of RNG, so I just go Relentless so I don't have to deal with it, even though it's kind of risky because you'll have to sit full blinds. Next, Defender, Vim, Inner Renewal. Never Inner Renewal, you go Vim or Defender. Vim in 2v2 I will go against maybe a Mage, but probably not. I think I go Defender pretty much every game. In 3s you use it a lot because people don't target you as much. So Vim, not very good in 2s most of the time. You can try it out and see if you can manage to keep yourself above 80% the whole game. Then it's huge. You know, Vim would be better if that's the case. But most of the time, smart players will always get your Vim down. It's making Defender better. Next, Purification or Purified Resolve. You basically always go Purification unless it's something where you don't have to dispel a lot. For example, if I face a Unholy DK, the only thing you can dispel there is Soul Reaper. And then a Mystery Monk, for example. If it's a comp like that where there's not a lot to dispel, you'll get more value out of Purified Resolve because it'll give you a shield as well. Apparently, this doesn't get affected by dampening because it's percentage. I don't know if that's intended or not. So this is a strong shield throughout the whole game. Searing Light, like I said, I play this all the time in 2v2 now. I don't really play Trinity anymore. You can test it out, see what you like. I like Searing Light with Sanctuary. So you can just spam damage, do more damage, get more penances, more smites, and your smite absorbs more. I like that offensive, aggressive playstyle. You need to go Premonition though against Warlocks for deafing Fear, against Shamans to def the Hex, unless you have a Feral in your team that can dispel the Hex. Against Hunters to try and def traps. Strength of Soul, always pick Strength of Soul. Not going to talk too much about that. A lot of people think this is good. It's not. Maybe there is a situation in 3v3 where it's good, but in 2v2 it's definitely never good. Archangel, you never go Powered Fortitude, you always go Archangel. Dark Archangel, maybe there is a scenario. I know a lot of people want to play that shit. I don't think it's good. I think Archangel is probably the strongest spell you have as a Disc Priest. It is so crazy. 30% healing, 15 seconds. This is 15% damage for you and your teammates with Atonement for 8 seconds. Definitely not bad, but losing Arc makes your playstyle scary. You lose a lot of healing, you lose an oh shit button, kind of. Next, traits. So the only thing, let me see, the only thing I want to mention, I already mentioned, Power of the Dark Side. Very important to dot people before you penance at the start of a game, for example. So this procs, get dots up. Dots, you can think of a dot as a hot as well. Like when you dot people, it also heals because of your atonement. So when you keep a dot on one or more targets, it will also heal you and your teammates. I'll get into how that works more in a bit. This is very important to have that proc. And then I want to talk about Vestments of Discipline. Activating Fade reduces all damage you take by 13% for 6 seconds. So when I press Fade, this works in PvP, you get this buff. So don't forget to bind Fade, because it's important. For example, I see a rogue coming towards me and I know he's going to kidney shot me and go ham. I pre-fade and then I have damage reduction for his burst. Next thing, I'll talk a little bit about the basic rotation of Disc. So with Disc, it's a very spammy class. You're always spamming buttons. It's different from other healers in that way. You can think of it like you have a lot of small shitty heals that you have to constantly throw out. You don't have a lot of like one-shot heals like most other healers. So you need to constantly spam buttons. It's a different playstyle than most healers. I want to point that out. The most important thing that I want you to think about when you're a Disc Priest is something called Atonement. So I will explain how Atonement works. It's important that you know how that works because it's like the whole point of Disc, right? Atonement. So the way Atonement works, to explain it quickly and easily, is that when Atonement is up, your damage heals everyone that has Atonement. Think about it like that. So it's a buff that always needs to be up. Also, when you have Atonement up, if you read Grace, it says, increases your non-Atonement healing and absorb by 30% on targets with Atonement. So, Powered Shield, for example, will heal more if you have Atonement up. 30% more. One thing I want to mention real quick while I remember. If you plea, so plea doesn't heal much. It's not something you press a lot to heal people. You press plea to get Atonement up. You press plea, Atonement gets refreshed and applied. So at the start of a game, I'll often, for example, press plea as my first button and then shield. Because that increases your shield healing. If you just press shield, it will also apply Atonement. Look at this. I shield and it applies Atonement. But that shield is weaker because you didn't have Atonement up. So you always want to make sure, well, not always, there will be a situation where you don't have time to do it. But you want to try and plea first. So you have the plea and then shield. If you already have Atonement rolling, then you don't have to plea. Right? So Shadow Mend applies Atonement, refreshes it, and Shield also refreshes Atonement. So if you have Atonement rolling, it's fine. So Atonement, like I said, heals, your damage heals. So when you have Atonement up on yourself and your partner, your dot is the first thing you do, right? You get your dot. The thing about the dot is it does damage, which equals to healing. And it gives you this proc, which makes your penance more powerful. So that's why it's really important to do it. And also when you penance a target with a dot, it spreads the dot to one nearby target. This target's not close enough, I guess. But that's what it'll do. So this is your damage rotation, right? You get your dot up and you penance and you smite. And that's it. And then you wait for a new penance. And then when you want to do the big burst, you use your artifact. And it'll do more damage the more people have atonement up as well, if you read the tooltip. So you dot, and you penance, and you smite. And when you do the big burst, you use your artifact. Which is also a ton of healing, because for how much damage it does. That's like all there is to damage, it's just those buttons. And you just keep atonement up. You always want a shield in between though. So let me explain how you heal. Like you get atonement up, and then you shield, and then you penance. So first priority when you're healing is shield, preferably with atonement up already, right? So you shield, and you penance, and then you shadow mend. And then shield's off cooldown, you shield. Shadow mend, oh my penance is off cooldown, I penance. My shield's off cooldown, shield, now I shadow mend. You get, if you get kicked on shadow, because of this spec we're not playing clarity. Normally, you clarity if you're kicked on shadow, but we're playing sanctuary, so we have to smite. So if I'm kicked on shadow, I'll still prioritize shield and penance. And this is actually so important. I see a lot of new priests mess this up all the time. They stand there and just spam shadow mends. You know, 5, 6 shadow mends in a row. This is such a waste. It's not good. You need to shield, you need to penance, always. Stop shadow mending, it's not worth it. This is way more healing. Those 2 buttons are way more important. So always prioritize them. In 2v2, like I said, you play Solus. Solus gives you mana. I completely forgot about that. Thank you very much. Solus gives you mana, so you always want to use that. And it also does damage, which also equals to healing, right? So you just throw Solus out. Right now I'm full of mana, so I don't care. I'll prioritize other things. But during the whole game, you'll not have full mana. So you always want to get your Solus out whenever you have the global to do it. You should still prioritize shield and penance, and then Solus after that. But it'll be a little bit situational. Like, if I'm in a situation where I'm 100% health, my teammates are 100% health, we don't really need a shield ASAP, I'll probably just prioritize Solus. You basically always want to have your Solus running out, but you will prioritize shield and penance over it. So if I'm in a situation when I'm 50% health, my teammate's 50% health, I'll shield first, I'll penance first, and then I'll Solus after. But you really want to get them out on cooldown as much as you can. It's really, really, really important. If you don't use your Solus constantly throughout the game, you will so fast. You will super fast. It just won't be good. So if you press Solus, super important that you press it all the time. Next thing I want to talk about while you're doing that standard rotation is penance. And in 2v2 specifically, in 3v3 maybe not as much, but still often in 3v3 you penance offensively. I think I use my penance probably 95% offensively. It is a ton of damage, a ton of healing as well, and it heals both targets. The only time I'll use penance defensively is when I'm like, oh my god, we are dying. Because it will heal a little bit more if you use it on a friendly target. Like this. It will heal a little bit more, but I want to use it for damage. Pretty much the whole game, I am spamming it for damage. Just play a lot, you'll get a feel for it, but try to always penance offensively in 2s. It's really important. Because every priest comp that is good is about pressure. You know, priest needs to play aggressive, you need to get damage rolling, you actually help a lot. You can do at least 100k DPS every game. Some games I'll actually pull out 160k DPS, even on pretty high rating. Which is a really high number, but usually you'll be around 100k mark if you're playing aggressive during a game. Some games you won't be able to and you'll be a little bit lower, but 60, 70, 80k, usually around 100k at least if you're playing well and doing a lot of damage. Alright, another thing to note is that when you're playing Solus, your Shadow Fiend doesn't give you mana because you're not Mindbender anymore, but you use it for damage, and that damage that it does heals because of Atonement. So all damage you do heals, right? That counts for your Shadow Fiend too, or Mindbender if you spec into it. But when you're spec into Mindbender, you don't have Solus anymore, so your mana regen is from the Mindbender. So you just think about Mindbender as something that gives you mana, and it also heals a little bit. So sometimes, for example, if I see a Hunter's coming towards me, because against Hunters I'll play Mindbender because I don't have time to Solus. He's coming towards me, he's about to trap me, I just pop my Mindbender, because I know it'll heal with Atonement. You see it's ticking heals on me here every time it attacks. It'll heal me when I'm in a trap, heal my teammate, because he has Atonement up. I'll talk quickly about cooldowns, because I mainly wanted to go over the damage rotation. So cooldowns, you have 2 cooldowns that are insanely strong, and then you have one that's medium and one really weak one defensively, right? So the really strong ones are Rapture and Pain Suppression. The medium one is Barrier, and the weak one is Fade. That is, these 4 buttons right here are your main defensives, right? That you use a lot. So something I want to mention with Rapture. Rapture, obviously, all it does is it gives you no cooldown powered shield. And since you're playing Strength of Soul, every time you spam powered shield like this, it heals a little bit. So you can just spam shield and it'll heal people. But what I like to do in between, if I have shields on both and they're not going through the shield, like obviously I'll spam shield. If they're doing so much damage that they're instantly breaking my shields, I'll just spam new shields over and over and over. And it'll be the most healing you can do. But if they're not going through my shields right away, I'll shield and then I'll just Shadow Mend and shield again. You do not penance, because if you get kicked on penance, you can't shield anymore, even with Rapture up, because you'll be kicked on that school. So you Shadow Mend, and then if you kick you, that's completely fine, back to spamming shields when Rapture is up. Right? Important, never penance when Rapture is up, unless you know you're not going to get kicked. Also, another thing to note with Rapture is that it's extremely good to pair up Rapture with Archangel. When you do Rapture plus Archangel, everyone is basically immortal. Spamming shields with Archangel is like no one can go through that. Other strong defense is Pain Suppression. You can use it in stuns. This is also something you have to use early. For example, if a rogue kidneys me and he pops Vendetta, you just Pain Suppression it and you can sit the kidney and you know you're fine. It's just the damage reduction. Also heals you a little bit because of a trait. Yeah, you just use it when you're taking a big chunk of damage. It's a lot about cooldowns. You counter cooldown with cooldowns, right? You see a big cooldown, you see someone's about to take a ton of damage, Pain Suppression before it even happens, and then that's how you use that. Same with Barrier, it's just not as effective, right? I see a rogue coming, I know the kidney is coming soon, as an example. I just Barrier myself, and then it kidneys me in this Barrier, and that'll help a lot. Just throw out your Barrier preemptively. It's not one of those buttons you want to use after you've taken a lot of damage. You want to use it before. Same with Pain Suppression. Rapture, however, you can use after you've taken damage, because it'll pick you back up, especially paired with Archangel. Fade, also a preemptive button that you kind of press a little bit more when you want to slow down the damage a little bit, or you're trying to predict a stun on you or something, because it reduces your damage taken by 13%. I mean, in general, in PvP, it's important to be preemptive, right? And counter cooldowns with cooldowns. Instead of trying to heal it with standard healing rotation, you see a big cooldown, you use a big cooldown too, right away, before you're in trouble. React to it fast. Alright, Frost DK, Holy Paladin, they're probably gonna play Melee Wings. This is a really hard comp. You need to root him when he pops Pillar. You need to stay away and use your Balance Affinity. Extremely important versus this. I'm gonna go Clarity of Will too against this. And Mindbender, because this is a crazy high pressure comp. I'm not gonna go Fair because it'll break instantly. Actually, I'm not gonna go Clarity. I'm gonna try Sanctuary. They're Russian too, so they have a damage boost. You know how it is. Just open on DK. Good. So I'm trying to I'm gonna try and prep myself for the Hodge. I'm gonna Barrier now. I didn't get it off, so I'm gonna PS instead. We're completely fine. I'm gonna Mindbender now. Try not to stand so close. I'm gonna Fade here. He kicks that, so I'm just spamming Smites instead. I couldn't purge that heal, I was on global. Get bleeds on the Paladin and just stun him. I'm gonna Artifact here. I'm doing big burst on the Paladin with you. I'm gonna get Hodge soon, so I'm kind of worried about that. I'm gonna knock before his Pillar, because you can't knock Pillar. I'm trying to top myself. Oh, he is playing Melee Wings. Okay, so I Barrier this. So now he's holding his Hodge. Okay, he gripped me out of it. I still want to sit it and arc when I get out. Then I got my Twist plus arc. Penzing offensively. Trying to bubble here. I mean MD. I got the bubble off. He trinketed. I'm gonna fair him. I'm gonna purge his freedom. I'm trinketing to do damage. Trying to purge that heal. I got it off. Mindbender on this guy just for the heal. I have to use Rapture actually. I messed up a little bit there. Didn't want to use Rapture there, but I had to. I'm hodged full. They do not have a good go now, but next go is good and I don't have Rapture for it, so I'm kind of worried now. Trying to get Bop off. I got it off. Oh, I wish my Feral didn't go off there. Trying to... they're gonna do a really good go on me soon. Like, it's coming. I'm gonna need help on that. Here. I'm dead here. I pre-faded. I got Masochism up. Spam healing. He's gonna hodge me soon and it's gonna hurt. You're standing too close, Mr. Feral. You're gonna get cleaved down. Okay, I'm actually completely fine. I don't know why he's not hodging me. There it is. Trinketing. Just use your wall and do damage. Getting dots out. Getting his freedom off. Get out. Get on the paladin. I'm gonna arc. You're too close. You're tanking cleave damage again. Don't do that. Let's kill this paladin now. Good stun. Big burst. Should be able to finish him here. He's dead. Good job.